So now the newly married John Stuart Mill, with his wife Harriet, embarked on the masterpiece of his life, and that was On Liberty. This book, which will be published in 1859, and has always been in print ever since, and is certainly one of the most important books ever written in the Western civilization. This book summarizes the meaning and the value of liberty. Now, at the point of its publication, 1859, all of Europe had been thinking about this for over 100 years. So from roughly 1750 on, in various political contexts, whether the United States or whether in England or whether in Paris or in Rome, book after book, pamphlet after pamphlet had been written about liberty. But now John Stuart Mill decided to try to define it and try to make clear why it was so valuable. Now, he'd been working on his great masterpiece all this time. She'd been writing also, and he publishes the very next year On Liberty. So this is the book that the two of them really had written together. They're talking about it all the time. She is his philosophical partner. That's right. That's absolutely true. We are in the middle of a huge freedom of speech and freedom of print debate. And nobody ever wrote a more appropriate book on this subject than John Stuart Mill, J.S. Mill, Mrs. Harriet Taylor's husband, called On Liberty. Here is just a quick summary. Philosophical essay by an English philosopher, published 1849. Mill's ethical system of utilitarianism to society and state. Now, it's way beyond that. It's true that the core of this is from Bentham's utilitarianism. Mill suggests standards for the relationship between authority and liberty. He emphasizes the importance of individuality, which he considers the prerequisite to all good living, the highest good of his idea. Mill asserts that democratic ideals can result in the tyranny of the majority. Among the standards proposed, Mill's three basic liberties of individuals, three legitimate objections to government intervention, and two maxims regarding relationship of the individual to society. Let me just say, you'll know that word liberal and liberalism, and you may call yourself a liberal. Nowadays, because so many forces in our society are denying the very key ideas of this book on liberty, people will often refer to classical liberalism. It's been in print ever since the first day. A copy of On Liberty is passed to the president of the British Liberal Democrats as a symbol of his office, and he and Mrs. Harriet Taylor, of course, greatly influenced the book together. Good. So John Stuart Mill opens his essay by discussing the historical struggle between authority and liberty. So this is the key introductory essay part of the book, talking about the struggle between authority and liberty. I mean, all through history, all the governments we know about, Greece, Rome, all the Middle Ages, everything, there's always a struggle between authority, the king, the president, the prime minister, or whatever it is, and the liberty of the individual citizen. He describes the tyranny of the government, which, in his view, needs to be controlled by the liberty of the citizens. Remember, he's living in a revolutionary period. He's essentially a romantic, and romanticism means revolution. He divides the control of authority into two mechanisms. Necessary rights belong to citizens, establishment of constitutional checks, and a court supposed to represent the interests of the citizens. Now, for us, we can just look here at these 15 steps in the evolution of individual rights. So look at ancient Babylon and ancient Egypt. No citizen rights. All the authority in the hand of the Pharaoh. Lots of stories of the Pharaoh persecuting people, etc. 2, Greece. You have the birth of democracy, the evolution of democracy, and then you have the high point, Pericles in Athens 450, but you also have, within 50 years, the execution of the greatest living philosopher in Athens at the time for having said the wrong things. So that's number 3, Pericles, or the execution of Socrates. Then you get the Roman Republic that has a constitution, and of course that's one of the most important things to ever happen. It's the first government in history to have a written constitution, and so that's a big step forward. Number 5, Constantine, 313, Edict of Milan, separation of church and state. First time that it's made clear, first time that it exists, and that will be the key issue of the rest of all the rest of this history to us today. So the next 1700 years is a fight about separation of church and state. 6, the barbarian tribes. Citizens don't necessarily have any limits. They have kings, so kings will often lead all the medieval governments. But in the barbarian tribes, citizens have tribal rights. So kings don't just pass to the throne, they have to be approved. So there's a sense of that. 7, Parliament, evolution of the English Parliament. 8, Magna Carta, most important document in all of this, establishes the individual rights of citizens. Basically, it's all property rights, but that's okay because that helps you get all the rest of the rights. So Magna Carta, primary for all of us. 9, parliamentary reforms that insist that the parliament meet at a certain frequency and who gets to be elected. That's absolutely critical. Number 10, Henry VIII, because parliament takes over partnership with him. He wants his divorce. Parliament will help him, but when they do help him, they get some of the power, and it never goes back. Then after Henry VIII, they've got it. Number 11, Charles I, civil war. Parliament wins. And so by 1650, the government of England is in the hands of Parliament. 12, confirmation of all the constitutional rights in the Bill of Rights. Revolution of 1688, William and Mary, Bill of Rights. 13, America, USA, Declaration of Independence. All citizens are equal before the law. Everybody is born equal before the law. And then 1787, Constitution. At the same time, French Revolution is going off the rails, executing everybody. 14, abolitionists end slavery, absolutely critical for the future of rights. And then in our own time, in 15, Ronald Reagan, tear down that wall. By 1990, it's coming down. And by 1991, the Soviet Union is dead. 10 or 15 countries are free. And now Germany is unified. So that's just a quick review.